to look at what happens when a particular kind of World Bank imagination spreads to our elite. Social consequences are tremendous. I'm not saying I'm anti-market, but I'm saying the gradient of what is, where do marginal groups, markets, state, the informal economy blend together in the new democratic ecological imagination. That's a BRICS question. At least that's fundamentally an Indian question. Because we are eliminating huge sectors of our population. I mean, which newspaper in India talks about retrenchment among the middle class today? It's stunning. No newspaper will publish records of the amount of unemployment among middle class people. It's a stunning silence. And it's these silences of the innovation change that I really want to talk about. I love innovation change. I wish they talked about the negative consequences that they bring about. Okay. Yeah. Now, will we be a bloc? I'm not bothered. No, this is the context in which I would raise it. Because BRICS has to have a broader definition of itself. And I think to a certain extent you gave that imagination. I mean, because you're saying, if BRICS were both simultaneously Davos, BRICS and World Social Forum, you would have the pluralism that we need. And I think that becomes important. Today, India, under being impelled by its middle class thing, wants a prime minister who can actually perform at Davos. He also happens to be a genocidal bully called Narendra Modi. The question is, what choices does the society make? And who pays for those choices? Terms of trade is about terms of payment of the next generation. So all I'm saying is, let each BRICS country give me its genocidal quotient. I will come to the next conference. But give me that genocidal quotient, because that's the one indicator you guys don't have here. How many people are you ready to eliminate, render obsolescent, displace, or just forget? I work on disasters. The last 10 years I spent following disasters in India. The amount of people who disappear is amazing. And you know what's interesting? Google doesn't have maps for any population below 1,000. And most of our marginal groups live in societies below 1,000. And since they're not the size of revenue villages, it's a history of erasure, indifference, and displacement of a kind. I want this to be a part of the BRICS storytelling. Own up to the invisibility of these groups. I'm all for BRICS. Let me take this question. For me, BRICS is not a complete imagination. Because I don't see BRICS beyond the doubts about import substitution. Where is the ethics of BRICS? Where is the ecological imagination of BRICS as a new kind of democratic imagination? I would say individuals have it, but I'm not quite sure our nation states have it. Do you think India has produced an ethics of non-violence beyond non-alignment recently? I mean, I'm harsher on India because I happen to be an Indian. But one can be equally harsh about other states. What is the new ecological, ethical, democratic imagination you people are bringing to the table? Is it only a terms of trade argument? You know, it's something that my father told me, and I'll end with this. He said, have you ever watched Indian hockey? I'm an avid hockey fan. In 1936, India went to the Olympics. It's the first time the Indian hockey team wore shoes. And they couldn't play the game. And at halftime, they took off the shoes. And we beat United States 26-0. Then comes the addendum. You see, the Europeans then decided that you can't play bare feet. They introduced something which defeated Indian hockey completely. It's called AstroTurf. Most Indians can't even afford to play on AstroTurf because you can't play bare feet on AstroTurf. You need a special kind of shoe which most Indian players can't afford. You've changed the rules of the game. So we are perpetually 5th, 6th, 7th or last. My thing is, the BRICS is not going to alter the rules of the game. But I have to suffer being a poor second. Maybe I'm a spoiled sport. But I'm tired of being at the losing end of a developmental sequence. I think we need some guarantee of survival in this game. The fact that a middle class survives, that the Indian IT industry is great shape, fine. But how much of an imagination is IT? It's the new dictatorship of the secretariat in India instead of the dictatorship of the proletariat. What new imagination did it add to the Indian social imagination? It hasn't even transformed Indian land records. What are we talking about? I think we have to raise wider questions. And I think that's where the sociological imagination comes. We have to ask our economists to rethink the democratic imagination. And for me, democracy, as I told you before, it's an idiotic stereotype, is the only comparative advantage I have to work with.
Right. Your question about China's exchange rate policy, you were asking, under the new leadership, will China significantly appreciate its currency? My answer is probably no, because China started the appreciation of the currency since 2005, so until today China has already appreciated 25%. And if we look at the bilateral trade imbalances or current account imbalances, every year China is setting a new record of the U.S. The trade surplus with the United States. So it's not helping as much as we hoped in terms of correcting or rebalancing. The other thing is about the reason, if we look at China's trade surplus or the foreign reserve, China is not the only country, it's a region. There's a surplus region, that's East Asia. And East Asian countries started to accumulate their foreign reserve and their trade surplus as a policy reaction to the 1997 financial crisis. So whenever today, when they're asked to do something about their foreign reserve, they will always have a counter argument, which is that they don't trust the current IMF, so they have to do this self-insurance. So it's a systemic issue there. And the other thing very interesting about this is related to it is it's a trade policy. So the only way for China to reduce export is to increase its domestic consumption. But it's not going to happen because not only China's economic growth relies on export, but also Chinese consumers, they don't have the habit, or they don't have the additional money to consume. So the overproduction, the oversupply cannot be digested domestically. It has to be exported. And the other thing is related to China's way of processing trade. So if China reduces its export, it will also reduce its import accordingly, because China doesn't need that much energy and the commodities and the ingredients to process. And then if that happens, then it won't fundamentally change the trade structure.
It's a little bit like defending your PhD again. I have 7 questions on science and technology, and another 3. Let me try and deal with the S&T ones in one mouthful. A lot of it is to do the lack of collaboration, the flow from Africa. A lot of that has to do with the trading opportunities. Why indeed is Tunisia collaborating so much with France? That's because generations of young Tunisians were trained in France. They come home and they continue to collaborate with their supervisors. So to answer Eduardo's question, how do you stimulate collaboration? The BRICS countries should be opening up training opportunities for their partners and peers' children to come and study in China, in Russia, in India, and then some of them will stay, and hopefully the majority of them will go home, and collaboration will flourish. That's how it works. So Sultan's question, why are African students coming to South Africa? I don't think it's got anything at all to do with the corporatization or managerialism of higher education. It's everything to do with money. The cost of getting a PhD in South Africa is a quarter of are getting that same PhD, and I say the same PhD, that you would get in an average US or UK or French university. So African countries, states who are paying for their elite children to come to South Africa are getting a very, very good deal. Secondly, if the students are coming from the Southern African development community, then you and me and Freek in the room, as South African taxpayers, can pat ourselves on the back because we're paying for those students because they are charged domestic fees. So there's a huge hidden subsidy from South Africa to Africa, encouraging students to come and get their degree, their their doctoral qualifications, and then under immigration law to go home. It's difficult for students to stay on, and that's a particular political stance. So to promote collaboration, to share the benefits, it is all about training opportunities in higher education. Improving the benefits as a strategy, it might well be, that was the question from over here, that the BRICS, at the summit of BRICS Science and Technology Ministers that will take place, I think, in December this year, where they will be talking for the first time about SMT, which was your concern. Maybe that summit will come up with a particular proposal to declare a 1, 2, or 3 agenda of BRICS grand challenges that are an echo or perhaps even different to the grand challenges of Brazil or the EU or the US or South Africa. Your question was, why do people go to the US and EU? I think I've answered that. The other question from my colleague there regarding the imposition of different royalty regimes and the extent to which this conflicts with the ease of doing business, a good observation. It really depends how it's done. And let's remember also that the Ease of Doing Business Index, among other things, measures policy certainty. So if this year the tax is 3% and next year it's 6%, well, adjust your financial model, you know where you stand. So I think it has to be done transparently and cleanly and without corruption, and going forward, in principle, it could work. Are the BRICS a bloc? I have no idea. Currently,